Okay, let's just think about this for a second. Pretty much everything you do online, your emails, your banking, even top secret military comms, it all travels through this kind of hidden world, right? We're talking about just over 570 undersea cables carrying, get this, over 95% of all global data. But here's the kicker. What if the very ships we trust to fix these cables are actually on a secret second mission? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to look at these ships that keep going dark. Then we'll follow the corporate trail, and trust me, you'll be surprised where it leads. After that, we'll get into the secret maps they're making, how they could turn a simple repair into a Trojan horse for data, and a real-life blackout that looks like a practice run. Finally, we'll tie it all together with China's big strategy for the transparent ocean. All right, let's jump in. First up, ships that go dark. This is where it all starts, with this really unsettling anomaly out on the high seas. So, this really begs the question, why would a civilian repair ship ever need to hide its location? I mean, think about it. There's this system called AIS. It's basically a mandatory safety transponder. It's supposed to be on all the time so you don't crash into other ships. Especially if you're a repair ship just sitting there vulnerable, you'd want everyone to see you, right? So why on earth are they switching it off? And listen, this isn't some random fluke. It's a clear pattern. We're talking about ships from this one company, SBS. Ships like the CS Fuhai and the Bold Maverick. They're consistently going dark near really sensitive places like Taiwan and Guam. You know, the Bold Maverick vanished for days right off Singapore, one of the biggest data choke points on the planet. And the CS Fuhai, same thing near Taiwan. These are not random places. These are the arteries of the internet, and these ships are basically acting like ghosts right on top of them. So let's just break this down. A legitimate repair ship keeps its AIS on. It's all about safety, being transparent. But what we're seeing here, this is suspicious. Turning off your AIS is a deliberate choice. It's concealment. It's the kind of thing you do when your repair job is actually a cover for something else entirely. Okay, so who exactly owns these ships? Let's follow the corporate trail. This is where we figure out who's pulling the strings. All right, check this out. It's a classic case of follow the money. At the bottom, we have SBS, the company that runs the ships. But who owns them? A company called China Com Service. And who owns them? China Telecom. Now that name is important because the US Department of Defense has officially designated them a Chinese military company. Why? Because they literally provide classified fiber optic networks for the PLA. The connection is right there in black and white. But it gets even crazier. You see this group, Unit 61398? They're a really infamous cyber espionage unit of the PLA. They're known for stealing massive amounts of data from Western companies. Well, guess what? SBS, the ship company, is headquartered in the exact same district of Shanghai. And the company that provided the specialized networks for these hackers to do their work, you guessed it, China Telecom. It's like one hand is laying the pipe and the other is tapping into it. And here's the part that's just wild. Guess who's been helping to fund all this? Us. Well, kind of. Big Western firms like Fidelity and BlackRock have held major stakes in SBSS's parent company. So without even realizing it, Western investment dollars have been flowing into a company that's developing these capabilities that pose a direct threat to, well, Western interests. The irony is pretty thick, right? Okay, so we've got the who. Now let's talk about the why. What's the military motive here? To understand that, we need to dive into the submarine's secret map. Look, you don't have to take my word for this. This quote comes directly from a PLA Navy journal. Their own officers are saying that their submarines are highly vulnerable to the US Navy. Basically, they're admitting they can't hide from American surveillance. For a country trying to project power, that is a massive problem. It's a problem they're desperate to fix. And this right here, this is their solution. It's like the difference between an old paper roadmap and Google Street View. On the left, you've got a standard nautical chart. It's okay, it shows you the general depths. But on the right, that's a high-resolution map made by these SBSS ships. They're using super advanced sonar to create these insane meter-by-meter 3D models of the ocean floor. We're talking canyons, ridges, everything. It's not just a map, it's a secret guide for where a submarine can go to disappear. So, how does this work? It's all about finding acoustic hiding spots. The ocean isn't uniform, right? You have these sharp layers of different water temperatures called thermoclines. They bend sound waves, creating shadow zones where sonar can't see. These ships are mapping those zones. They're also mapping what's called the deep scattering layer. basically a massive wall of marine life that acts like a false ocean floor. It's a natural cloaking device. So these ships are essentially handing the PLA Navy a playbook on how to become invisible underwater. But just mapping the seafloor is only half the story. The real danger might be what they can do to the cables themselves. This is the Trojan horse at sea, the technology of the heist. Think about it. The one time these massively protected cables are vulnerable is when they're being repaired. The ship pulls the cable up from the seafloor, they strip off all the armor to get to the delicate fiber inside, and right there, on the deck, is the opportunity. You can splice in a tiny passive tap that siphons off a copy of all the data flowing through. Then you just patch it up, drop it back to the bottom of the ocean, and no one would ever know. It's the perfect man-in-the-middle attack, but happening a mile underwater. And it can get even sneakier. These cables have devices called repeaters every so often to amplify the signal so it can travel across oceans. The key thing is, these repeaters are powered by the cable itself, so they're the absolute perfect spot to hide a permanent tap. You've got power, you've got access to the data stream, you could have a listening post sitting on the seafloor for years, and nobody would have a clue. Okay, this all sounds pretty scary in theory, but has it actually happened? Well, let's look at the 2023 Matsu Island incident. This could be a rehearsal for a real blackout. So here's what happened in February 2023. On February 2nd, a Chinese fishing boat cuts one of the cables of Taiwan's Matsu Islands. Okay, maybe an accident. But then, just 6 days later, a different Chinese ship, a sand dredger, cuts the other cable. 2 cables, 2 different Chinese civilian ships in less than a week. The odds of that being a coincidence? Let's just say they're not great. And the impact was immediate. The island's internet bandwidth dropped from around 8 or 9 Gbps down to just 2. You go from a superhighway to a tiny dirt road overnight. 14,000 people were basically knocked offline, forced to use a crummy old microwave link. It just goes to show how incredibly vulnerable this infrastructure is. So, was this just bad luck? A lot of experts say no way. This looks a lot like a dry run, a test. How easy is it to cut an island off from the world? What's the response time? It shows that this isn't just about spying. It's about having the ability to literally pull the plug, to create a communications blackout, maybe right before an invasion. So let's put all the pieces together. The ships going dark, the corporate links to the PLA, the secret submarine maps, the cable tapping, the Matsu incident, it all points to one thing: China's transparent ocean strategy. This is the grand strategic picture. This is basically the entire data heist, step by step. First, SBS gets a normal civilian contract to repair a cable. That's the cover. While they're there, they use their advanced sonar to map everything: the seafloor, the acoustic environment. Then, that secret data gets passed up the chain through China Comm Service right to the PLA Navy. And finally, the PLAN uses those maps to find stealthy pathways for its submarines to slip past U.S. defenses. It's a pipeline from commercial work to military advantage. And this is all in service of a much bigger idea they called the transparent ocean strategy. The goal is to build this huge, invisible net of sensors from the bottom of the ocean all the way up to space. The idea is to make the entire Western Pacific totally transparent to them, while keeping it dark and confusing for the US. And these SBSS ships, they're on the front lines, building the most important layer of that net, the one on the seabed. So, we're back to where we started. Over 570 cables carrying 95% of our data, the very foundation of our world. And it's all way more vulnerable than we like to admit. The civilian companies we pay to keep it running might just be playing for another team. It leaves you with a really chilling question, doesn't it? In this hidden war on the seafloor, who is watching the watchers?